Hello, everyone. There was a lot that came out this week, so we have a lot to go over. Let's not waste any time. I'm the comics teacher. We have 3 graphic novels this week to go over and then a bunch of single issues, so I'm going to jump right in with our nonfiction book of the week, which is Secret Path by Gord, Downie, and Jeff Lemire. This book was published by Simon & Schuster, and you'll notice right away it's about the size of a record album because there's an actual album that Gord Downie had created to go along with this graphic novel. It is the true story of a young boy named Channy Wenjack, and it's set in Canada during a time when Canadians were taking students and kind of putting them into schools, taking them away from their families. And this boy escaped his school or left his school and tried to walk 400 miles home to try to find his parents. And in the process, he passed away in the cold. It is an extremely sad, touching reminder of the things that, as humans that we do to each other and we've done to each other. And this isn't even like that old. This happened in 1966. So it is a very moving portrayal. The pictures, the Jeff Lemire images are very large. A lot of the time they fill up an entire page. So you get the scope of what is happening and the locations, and the text on the page a lot of the times is the lyrics to the songs. So if you follow along with the album, you kind of get this beautiful haunting music along with this beautiful haunting tale, and that's Secret Path. The next thing I want to talk to you today about is the one that is just for you. This is a newer graphic novel from Image Comics called Pulp, and that is Ed Brubaker and Shaun Phillips. This was not in single issues. This was just kind of produced as a graphic novel. It's the thing I find really interesting about this book is that it's set in a really interesting place. It's like right World War I, pre-World War I, New York City. But one thing you don't think about is like the people who were older during World War I were cowboys, a lot of them in the Wild West, right? So that sort of Wild West experience, when those people got older, they ended up getting older in a country that was extremely different than where they were born. So this story follows a man who is older in New York City around that time, and he was a outlaw when he was younger, and he's kind of revisiting those outlaw days as he gets older to try to find some peace for his life and maybe a chunk that he can retire on. So I really like that this book spans those time periods. We don't often see stories that take place like that a character lived during both of those eras. So it's really interesting in that way. Is there anything super interesting about the story or game-changing about the story? I would say no. I really enjoyed it, though. And if you like Westerns and crime dramas, that book, especially blending the two time eras, is a pretty good pickup. All right, let's get into what happened this week. All right, this book by Vault Comics came out. It's called Heavy. It's from Max Benis and Eryk Donovan. Interesting premise, although it's not uber creative as well. So imagine like you die, you don't go to heaven, you don't go to hell, you're kind of in the middle, and then you get assigned a job until you're either worthy or not to go up to heaven. And certain people are called heavies, and they basically work like assassins that people in this world send down to earth in different dimensions to kill, to assassinate certain people that are bad, right? So, but since there are alternate dimensions, they can kind of play with that idea. And in this Vault comic, what you have is a character who gets sent down in an alternate dimension where Da Vinci has used his crazy contraptions to do evil and try to take over the world. So he goes down to kind of assassinate him. There's a lot of unnecessary male nudity in it, and nudity in general, not just male nudity. I don't know why it's like there's just unnecessary nudity because the Da Vinci land is kind of like just weird, and I like, it's a cool premise, but like we've also seen that like Umbrella Academy where you have these assassins having to take out, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not going to be putting it on my pull list, but if that sounds like, because it sounds like the worlds they can create are pretty much endless. Okay, there was from Albatross Comics this week, there was a crossover between Fearless Dawn and Hellboy. I don't know who Fearless Dawn is. Apparently she's a pretty big Albatross Comics character. I thought this was pretty fun. If you know both of those characters, this is just a one shot. It's just fun. Not a lot of pages drawn by Mignola, though. Only like 4 of these pages are drawn by Mignola. And then the rest of them we have drawn by Steve Mannion, which is also pretty cool art. But if you see Hellboy and you're like, oh, I'm going to get all this Mignola art, you're going to be a little disappointed with only 4 pages of art. All right, The Amazing Spider-Man, The Sins of Norman Osborn came out this week, and that's from Nick Spencer and Federico Vicentini. You kind of need to have some backstory, Marvel, like what's going on in the Marvel Universe and who all of these characters are. This is not going to be an entry book for you. All of these spider people on the cover here, if you know all of them and where they came from and how this Spider-Man stuff has been going down, you'll probably dig this book. But if you know nothing about any of that, this is not your entry point. You can stay away from this title. I had to pick up this one, not only because it is the Alex Ross cover of Iron Man here, Iron Man #1, but because I do like Iron Man books, and I think Iron Man is one of the characters that is drawn that if when there's a #1, you can come in and not need to know a ton of backstory or history, and this one is exactly the same as that. This was my favorite single issue of the week, I think, and this was done by Christopher Cantwell and Cafu with the Alex Ross cover. Alex Ross is going to be doing hero covers, variant covers throughout the next couple months. So if you dig that, then you might want to go to your local comic book store. Mine is Alternate Reality, located on 111th and Kedzie in beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood in Chicago. Tell Tim Comics Teacher sent you. I'm going to ask him after I get home today. I'm going to give him a call and see if he can put these Alex Ross covers on hold for me, because the relationships you build with your comic book store owners and employees are important ones. So here we go. Iron Man #1 came out. Hopefully you can get your hands on this beautiful Alex Ross cover. A couple more guys. I know there's a lot today. Stillwater came out, and that is from Image. Nope, I lied. Yes, I did not lie. It is Image Comics. This is the new Chip Zdarsky, Ramon Perez book. Stillwater, guess what? It's the name of a town. We're seeing a lot of these comics come out where the title is the name of a town, and guess what? Characters who aren't from the town make it to the town, and all this weird stuff is happening in the town. Tale as old as time, as we're saying in comics these days. The story is kind of interesting. The characters are all right, but it feels like 5 other things I've read this year, so I'm not going to be putting this on my pull list, unfortunately. But if you like Zdarsky, you might want to give it a shot, but just know, it's one of those books. Weird Town is the name of the title. I'm going to write a comic called Weird Town is the title of this comic. All right, and then final single issue is You Look Like Death, Tales from the Umbrella Academy. I did like this one a lot too. This was Gerard Way, Shaun Simon, and I.N.J. Culbard. This is a tale of Klaus. So he's younger. He's still in the. He's. If you watch the show, it takes place before that, right? They're in the house with all of the family, and it's just a tale of Klaus kind of getting kicked out of the house and things that happen to him. It's funny. It's written well. It's drawn well. This is a really cool book. If you love that Umbrella Academy universe, you can check this one out. Final book of the day, ladies and gentlemen. This one is for your classroom, and this is Primer. Primer is a superhero, what does it say? A superhero graphic novel done by DC Novels for Kids, and graphic novels for kids. And it's Jennifer Muro, Thomas Krajewski, and Gretel Lusky. Comics writers have some interesting names. And this one was my favorite thing I read this week. It is about this girl who is going from orphanage to orphanage, and her dad is in prison for a crazy crime that you find out what it is. And that moment when you find out is actually really heavy. So just know there's a couple heavy parts of this book. And she gets put with this family that ends up being like the wife of the family is like a scientist, and she brings home these very dangerous in the wrong hands chemicals and paints that allow you to have powers if you put the paints on. And this girl, 13-year-old girl, finds these paints and starts putting these paints on her and becomes a superhero. And it's her dealing with that and everybody in this world. It's basically an origin story of this character, and she ends up calling herself Primer, which is kind of a cool play on the color thing and the paint thing. So check this one out. I was going to give it to my niece and nephew, but just that one scene in there, it's like, when it happened, I was like, man, that's really heavy. It's not graphic, but the allusion to what happens like between the panels there, right, it's heavy. So, but I would for sure middle school and maybe even like 5th grade is fine, but don't go. I wouldn't know if I'd go any lower than that without reading it first. So there you go. That is Primer from DC Graphic Novels for Kids. All right. we're going late today, so we're running late, so I'm not going to do a recap of the books here. If you want to recap them, you know, I always put the titles in the description, and you can always just rewind this video. I want to thank you for watching. Remember, I have educational videos that drop every Wednesday. I'm going to be doing another day in a couple months as well, so 2 educational videos a week. And then these review videos on Friday at noon. Have a great weekend and a wonderful week. And if you like any of these comics, go search them out and support local businesses. I'm the Comics Teacher. See you later.